fights and divisions exist for virtually no time in the Republican Party, because to a large extent, there is no ideological differences. There's very little, like, there's just no diversity. You can't find a more homogenous group of people than the Republican Party. They are beyond overwhelmingly white. In terms of an electoral base, they are also overwhelmingly male. And in terms of financial interest, even if you look at the electorate, they tend to be wealthier than Democrats. And the electeds all have one agenda, and that is to get tax cuts, essentially, to rich people. So their divisions do not last very long. It really just has to do with where are my best interests served. And that's it exclusively within the Republican Party.
Plus, they have an authoritarian mindset. So once the big guy kind of becomes the leader, the top king ape or whatever, then they all kind of bow down.
They fall into line. Yeah. And so, there's this big DeSantis Trump thing brewing. I'm convinced it's going to take about a week, and everybody will come into line from Trump after he announces. There's also this McConnell, Rick Scott thing brewing, I guess. McConnell's going to stay on because Rick Scott's a moron.
Predator.
And this, what's that?
Alien versus Predator.
Exactly. Exactly. And Kevin McCarthy, I think he's going to hang in there in the House because nobody else wants that job. Nobody else is dumb enough to want that job.
With like a 3 or 4 seat Republican majority.
There was three lawmaker House members who died in the last 2 years. So having a 3-seat majority is no walk in the park. Here is Chuck Todd, doing his best to seem like he's probing in any questions that he's offering to Senator Bill Cassidy, Republican from Louisiana.
If this is the result of these elections, but the Republican Party still has sort of the same leadership at RNC, Ronna McDaniel, Kevin McCarthy of House Republicans, Mitch McConnell of Senate Republicans, and of course Donald Trump is sort of the leader out there. If there's no change there, do you think that's a problem for Republicans going forward?
First, we're not a cult. There's one person who leads our party. If we have a city...
Pause it for 1 second. One of the ways that you can tell if a group of people is a cult, and that is if they just feel like we've got to make it clear we're not a cult. Regardless of what I'm being asked.
Bullet point number 1.
It's like you being asked a question about, how's the Majority Report doing?
First of all, we're not a cult.
No. And you going, first of all, my haircut's great.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. That's on your mind, not everybody else's.
Exactly. So just, you should know, they're not a cult. Definitely not a cult.
Ronna McDaniel, Kevin McCarthy of House Republicans, Mitch McConnell of Senate Republicans, and of course Donald Trump is sort of the leader out there. If there's no change there, do you think that's a problem for Republicans going forward?
First, we're not a cult. We're not like, okay, there's one person who leads our party. If we have a sitting president, she or he will be the leader of our party. But we should be a party of ideas and principles. And that's what should lead us. And I will go back. What we've been lacking, perhaps, is that fulsome discussion followed up with the policy initiatives that we work to pass that will define who we are. Again, we are not going to have one person anointed unless she or he happens to be a sitting president. We should have a set of principles and ideas and legislative accomplishments that is our lodestar, if you will. That's where we need to go.
I understand that's where you should go. How do you get the party there?
All right, pause it. Wait a second. The follow-up question to this is, you guys were in power for 4 years. What legislation did you pass? Tax cuts. Anything else? Well, you've been out of power for 2 years. Who else has emerged as a leader? Nobody. I got news for you. You're a cult.
Yeah, you used to talk about repealing
By your own definition, you're a cult. You basically said, we're not a cult. Because if we were a cult, we would do exactly what we've done for the past 6 years. And we've done that, so we're not a cult.
What was the Republican Party platform in 2020?
Yeah, it was everything that Donald Trump wants. In fact, there wasn't one.
No.
They didn't even put one out.
Right.
Like ask Trump.
You know how hard it is. You know the base of this party still loves Donald Trump. Or do you think that this midterm could break that spell?
You know, elections are about winning. And so if folks want to look at these election results and decide that's where you want us to continue to be, then we're not going to do well. If people are going to look at these election results and say, hey, listen, the Republicans have established ourselves as the anti-woke brand. We care about being anti-woke. Now let's have a series of policy initiatives that actually help people's lives get better.
Okay, so just in case you were wondering, what is the policy prescriptions of Senator Bill Cassidy to prove that they're not a cult? It is, we're the party of anti-woke.
Yeah,
Can we just, honestly, can we just sit for a moment with that? That a grown frickin' adult senator just said, we're going to come up with policy prescriptions that say that we're not, we're anti-woke. First off, there couldn't be more evidence on how their transphobia fell flat on its face. It turns out that the American public, I mean, if you put the question right in front of them and they've got to decide what's going to happen with women's sports, they might decide okay, yeah, no trans women in women's sports, maybe. They don't know how to answer this. But in terms of what they actually care about, they don't care, because normal people don't really care. I suppose if you've been training for sports for a long time and you're worried that you're not going to win, you could possibly be upset about trans people in sports. You could also possibly hire two guys to take a lead pipe to your opponent and take her out of the running. I mean, who knows what you could do? But normal people just sort of realize it really doesn't impact me if someone is uncomfortable with the gender that they have been in and they've gone through all sorts of therapy and they've tried everything they can do and they want to live a happier, more fulfilled life, and they do this, it really doesn't in any way really implicate my life in any way.
Yeah, I'll let the school athletic board deal with that, and I'll vote on, abortion or something.
Exactly. Something that maybe involves rights for 50% of the country at a minimum.
State GOP chief of staff in running against Whitmer, for Tudor Dixon said there were more ads on transgender sports than in inflation, gas prices, and bread and butter issues that could have swayed independent voters.
And Michigan, I got news for you. Michigan is ripe for the taking for the Republican Party. And the idea that they got completely blown out there, and Kennedy is going on TV and going we're not a cult. We're just going to come up with policy positions to be the anti-woke party.
Yeah, and frankly, I know that media critique again it can be lazy, but why is that not Chuck Todd's first question as opposed to okay, I want to goad you into a soundbite being anti-Donald Trump? What are you actually proposing?
Because all they can think is this is the Trump story. So you have the entire Republican Party saying the problem is Trump and that Trump's in the way of us doing the anti-woke stuff. No, guys.
Right, right.
And also, okay, let's say you got rid of the entire Republican leadership. What's going to change?
Nothing.
I mean, maybe their skill sets might change a little bit, but it's only going to go down. You're not going to find anybody who is more successful at being the Senate majority leader than or minority leader than Mitch McConnell.
Rick Scott would just be more explicit about taking away and cutting into Social Security and Medicare. That's
just going to be
literally
worse.
Their one problem with him was that he was way too open about, we're going to raise taxes on everybody who isn't rich with my new plan.
Crazy.
So that's why they can't be specific, and it's helpful to them that nobody seems to ask them that question.